Hi, I'm Ed Amoroso from Tag Cyber, and I'm here with my friend Sudhakar Ramakrishna, who is the CEO of Pulse Secure, and I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Ed. Pleasure to be here.
Oh, welcome to New York City.
Thank you.
You and I have so much common roots in the old telecom industry.
Absolutely.
And AT&T and the labs and so on. You've been around the industry for a little bit. Tell us about yourself and kind of what brought you to Pulse Secure.
Wonderful. Ed, first of all, thanks for having me over here. I've been now with Pulse a little over 3 years. Pulse itself is about close to 4 years. In fact, on October 2nd, we will be 4 years old. But the way I like to describe Pulse is that we are a young company with a very rich heritage. In other words, the technology that our teams have been building have been going on for almost 15 years now, supporting a variety of applications and needs, all focused on improving the productivity of our customers and workers at large. As you said, I've been around the block a while, including in the telecom sector, and I consider it my good fortune that I worked in the enterprise sector, the service provider sector, and had a number of really exciting experiences, starting with operating systems, distributed computing systems, evolving to collaboration, evolving to cloud and virtual technologies, and now on to integrating all of those on a secure fabric. So that's how I would describe my journey. Had been at the intersection of a lot of really interesting trends, operating systems leading to the internet, then internet influencing communications and collaborations with voice over IP, media over IP, etc., and then getting into the virtual world and cloud and security now.
You know, not every CEO has that technical background. Do you feel like that gives you an edge? Like if there's young people watching now who want to be a CEO of a tech company, would you say a tech background is important?
Definitely it does. The way I would describe it, Ed, is context of the industry that you're working in is super important. In other words, I don't believe that you must have a technical degree or you must have a business degree, but you must have the work ethic and the intellectual curiosity to know the industry that you're in and put in the effort to learn it. But does it help me personally? Absolutely. But I'll also say, speaking of good fortune, another interesting thing, which is while I am a technologist and an engineer, from the very first day I have been in this industry, I have worked with customers. So that gives you a different vantage point where you're not just sitting in a lab and producing things. You're talking to customers, understanding their needs, and you build a very strong sense of empathy, which is what allowed me, I would say, to become a better engineer, a better product manager, a better general manager, and hopefully a better CEO as well.
Nice to hear empathy and engineering in the same
Absolutely.
sentence. You don't always hear that.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Now, company in some sense had its legacy back in the old Juniper network.
Yes.
So tell us about that story. How was it born? And it seems like Juniper was very generous in providing, as you guys were spun off, a lot of intellectual property and so on. Tell us about that story.
Absolutely.
Must be a great story there.
In fact, the company's history predates even Juniper. So there was an independent company called Neoterrace, which was acquired into NetScreen, which was then acquired into Juniper. So our technology, at least parts of our technology, I wouldn't say all of it, have a 15, 20-year history almost.
Yeah.
As Juniper spun us out, we came out with about upwards of 200 patents, to which we continue to add. We have a fantastic product and engineering team that is constantly looking at not only the trends in the marketplace, but having that empathy, like I described, to the customers. And we consider ourselves to be, I describe it as a small, big company. So let me explain what I mean by that. We are a big company in the sense that we have 20,000 customers worldwide. Wow. And 20 million users, upwards of 20 million users, leverage our technology every single day. Equally, we like to think of us as being a small company because we want to be nimble, we want to be agile, we want to be responsive, and we do not want to rest on our laurels. So in that regard, we always try to have a chip on our shoulder, and when there isn't one, we insert one to really give us the edge to become better every single day. And my yardstick for us is, are we better today than we were yesterday? And just keep rolling that forward. And so that's what has helped us to become Pulse. And since the time we became Pulse about 4 years ago, and as you said, Juniper was generous in some ways of divesting not only the source code but the patents, etc. We have more than tripled our workforce. So we were about 200 people, a little over 200 4 years ago. We are almost close to 650, 700 people now. And in that process, I would say that the pace of innovation has accelerated tremendously. And a metric that we take a lot of pride in is our Net Promoter Score, which is the ultimate example of or indicator of customer satisfaction. And today our Net Promoter Scores are approaching 50, which as you can imagine
Net Promoter is, would you recommend the company?
Absolutely.
Yes or no, basically.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's almost approaching 50, which is as good as some of the best consumer brands out there.
That's spectacular. Now, big theme in your company is access.
Yes.
Making people productive through access that, in my world, I think security, but I think it's a lot broader than that. Tell us about secure access and how you guys do it.
Yeah, so we defined the notion of secure access in 2015. And Ed, as you know, the industry is now latching on to the term of secure access.
Right.
It was born out of both.
Thanks to you guys. You use it all the time.
I mean, we do use it all the time because we really believe that having a broad mission on one hand, but a very singular mission on the other hand is super critical. One of the interesting stories I tell when I go to customers and partners is our mission has not changed in the last 3-4 years, and it won't. And the reason I emphasize that is routinely people go to sales kickoffs or company kickoffs year after year after year, where the strategy and the mission keep changing. That is an indicator that they are not broad in their thought process and not focused in their mission. So I take a lot of pride in highlighting that fact. Why we came up with the secure access mission, there are some very fundamental yet very simple reasons for doing that. First is that everybody wants to be mobile. So we believe that everyone is inherently mobile. So we don't want to restrict where you work from, what device you use, what location you are at, etc., etc. Two, on the flip side, if you think about IT spend and the IT complexity, CIO's budgets, CISO's budgets are actually shrinking, and yet their demands are growing, which is a very basic trend, which is a fact of life.
It is.
So now how do we support them on one hand, which is the CIOs and the CISOs and the CFOs, etc., and then how do we give the freedom to the end user who wants more access, more types of devices, more applications, etc., etc. There's a fundamental disconnect. Therein lies the innovation of being able to build technology that allows you to have the freedom of leveraging cloud or data center, having applications in the data center or on the cloud, going to a workplace or working remote, whatever the case might be. So the notion of remote is blurring. I mean, for instance, I'm here sitting down with you. My enterprise perimeter, so to speak, stretches with me here, and it's on my phone here. So therefore, the notion of remote is blurring versus disappearing. What's more important is access. But doing so in a secure manner is even more important, given your assets are no longer locked up in a data center, they're spread all over the world, and given your users are having the freedom to work from anywhere. So therein lies the approach of secure access to bridge mobility, to bridge hybrid IT, and enable those two trends with great and simple user experiences to help people become more productive.
So in a sense, secure access is the new perimeter, but it's distributed and it's virtual. Did I say that right?
It is distributed, it is virtual. And I like to say the perimeter is amorphous. By that, I mean that the perimeter is switching and there's no shape to it specifically.
As we move.
As we move. the perimeter switches to where you are as a person. So it's driven by you, the person, and we, the workers, as opposed to something being fixed.
Yeah, makes sense. So another factor here is a shift from hardware to software. Is
Absolutely.
that where SDP or software-defined perimeter?
Exactly.
Is that what that means?
Absolutely. So, as you know, Ed, being in the industry for a long time, there was a heavy reliance on appliances or specific or custom-built hardware as a way of both dimensioning systems as well as providing a level of, if you want to use the word, control from a end-user perspective, or I should say administrator perspective. Now that has given way to virtual, that has given way to cloud consumption, to give again the flexibility and the economics to the administrator. So we as a business have determined ourselves to supporting our customers' needs as they please. So we sell our solutions in physical form factor, albeit in a reduced scale now, virtual, as well as any form of cloud, multi-cloud.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people use the term zero trust.
Yes.
What does that mean? When people don't know what that means, they think, I don't trust what you're doing. Help us with that sort of, in the context of, say, device to workload.
Yes.
What does it mean to have zero trust?
Good, very good question. Again, these are new terms that are emerging, but the fundamentals of those terms have been around for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
So let me give you a contrast between, call it, traditional models and zero trust models. As enterprises evolved and as needs evolved, there are various, call it, architectures that came up, right? I mean, you're familiar with the DMZ as an example, demilitarized zone. In many firewall, etc. In many enterprises, it's not uncommon to have a DMZ to expose you to the outside internet, and then inside the network, so to speak, there are multiple security zones as well, having firewalls for application servers, firewalls for storages, etc., etc. So that led to this philosophy of anything behind a secure device like a firewall or a VPN concentrator, etc., was secure. Now, the notion of zero trust simply says that you cannot believe in that notion, and instead you must establish trust with everyone and everything at all points in time. Yeah. Therefore, this layered architecture or trust zones pretty much disappear. It's no different than assuming that everything and anything is connected to the public internet. And so how do you establish trust? Is the notion of zero trust. Not that you don't trust anybody, but it's a fundamentally different way of approaching security.
Yeah. Now let me ask you an implementation question.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that as you visit with enterprise customers, they all have an identity and access management system.
Yes.
And they probably have some scheme for doing access, maybe tokens
Yes.
or whatever they're doing.
Yes.
Well, what's your story when you go in? And I presume that you guys are pretty confident you can improve on the scheme that most people have. Well, what's sort of the it's not sales pitch, but more the engineering pitch?
Yeah, let's think about it from a value proposition standpoint.
That's the right word.
So we don't go into a customer and say, we are building a security product.
Yeah.
We go to customers and talk about how we approach the access challenge that they all have to ultimately improve their productivity and reduce their cost, but do so securely. So I have this fundamental belief, which I've held it for a very long time, that security should be about access, not just about control. There is an element of control and security, don't get me wrong. But the image that everybody thinks of when you think about security is that of a lock. So I've met many CISOs and CIOs who say, we are known as the no people in our organization. Can I use this operating system? No. Can I use that device? No. Which fundamentally inhibits and restricts access. What we are trying to do is to unshackle those no people to become yes people, so to speak, and give their users more freedom and give themselves more relevance in taking their organizations into the future. So that is kind of the fundamental value proposition that we drive into those customers. And the other important thing that we've done is we have taken secure access in a very comprehensive way. Secure access to us is a combination of network access, cloud access, application access, and mobile access. With a very important distinction that oftentimes a lot of people don't appreciate till they start deploying, which is we have one common client software that integrates all of these functionality. So if you go to a CIO or a CISO and say, what do you not want? They'll say, I do not want more clients running on my end user systems, because those are points of failure, they are points of security holes, points of administration that I do not have the resources to do. So we improve the administrators' productivity by simplifying their lives. We improve the end users' productivity by giving them more choices. So that's really how we drive our value proposition.
I love that idea that access is positive, access control is negative.
Yeah, access control only can be negative.
Yeah,
there is an
it's-
element of
it's
control.
No.
Exactly.
It's saying no.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Absolutely.
You know, back when you and I were first getting started in our careers, access to an app was you sat down at a computer on a LAN and you hit something on a server.
Yes.
Probably a Unix mainframe.
Yes.
An old 11780 running Unix or something, right? Is it now, is the canonical base case a mobile device over a wireless network to a cloud workload?
Absolutely.
Is that become...
That has become...
So we would measure normal from that, where that wasn't normal before.
You're-
Have we really shifted to that as the base case?
Absolutely. We have already shifted to that base case, I would say. For instance, if you look at a mobile phone today, which is, let's say, Pulse Workspace enabled, you could have a number of applications on it. Some of them could be traditional data center apps. Some of them could be web applications.
Payroll. Or
yeah, web
something like
applications.
that,
You simply click on it, and we have a single sign-on approach where the user should never have to know, is this app in my data center or is this app in the cloud? Why should they know?
Yeah.
All they need to know is, I need to use this app.
A button on their phone.
Exactly. So that's what we have, I would say, simplified it to, not so much reduced it to today.
It's amazing how, except base case is so important. I'm sure you have clients that still say PCs on the LAN that do this, and
absolutely.
it's fine.
Absolutely.
But it always strikes me as important to think through, what is your base case? Because that drives design
Absolutely.
decisions clearly.
Absolutely.
You
So,
optimize to the base case.
absolutely. Going back to the example that you brought about the base case, oftentimes when people thought about virtual or cloud, they were taking stuff that was a monolithic architecture, so to speak, and force fitting it into virtual and cloud. That was not a scalable model. In fact, going back to the base case example, whether it is our management and policy engine, whether it's our software, whether it is our client, which was inherently designed for mobile, we design in the cloud, and we sometimes have brought it back onto premise as well, because some customers have not made the transition to cloud. But what I like to say is, don't think of cloud as a place. Think of the cloud architecture as a set of philosophies by which you build products. By that, what I mean is, give the user flexibility, give them inherent scalability, give them the ability to be failure resistant, as opposed to failing and having to recover through redundant mechanisms, etc., elasticity, self-provisioning, all focused on simplicity and productivity. And so we brought the same philosophies into software, no matter what form factor the software runs on.
Can I get a little philosophical with
absolutely,
you?
absolutely.
You're CEO of a cool company, so I can't resist. In the old days, we would trust the perimeter to stop hackers.
Yes.
And in the beginning, it probably worked.
Yeah.
Now, not so much.
Yeah.
This software-defined stuff.
Yes.
does it stop hackers? Like, do you think it's better, or are we getting to are we still way behind? What do you think? That's a hard question.
I would say the following way, Ed. Every day there is innovation happening to make things more secure.
Yeah.
So in some ways you're playing a game of chance, so to speak. And I truly believe by taking the trust models to the way that we are talking about now, the likelihood of compromise is reducing greatly. For instance, our software today, instead of just authenticating a user, will be able to authenticate a user, a application, a network, and a device. So in essence, and do so simply. So in essence, what happens is that the trust layers and trust levels are becoming more and more robust.
Right.
Therefore,
more adaptive, more contextual.
Absolutely. More, I would say, richer from an authentication standpoint. Therefore, the possibility of attacks and compromises will continue to go down. We always have to be vigilant. We need to continue to think about, okay, for every move that we make, what additional moves might the bad actors take. And so therefore, we have to work as a community as well. And there's a lot of cross-learning and cross-sharing amongst the community on that.
That's great. Are you a fan of things like artificial intelligence and machine learning? You think that's you think those are good technologies for cyber?
Absolutely. So speaking of artificial intelligence, way back when I was a grad student, I did work in distributed systems, artificial intelligence, etc. But the computing power in those days was minimalist.
There were no GPUs.
Yeah, exactly. Where we are seeing a direct impact of machine learning in our technologies is, you're familiar with our Pulse Policy Secure product,
Yes.
which is our NAC product, right? We made fantastic strides in that. And going back to this, if I can quickly deviate into the zero trust.
Please do.
We actually have been building zero trust models for several years. It's not just a new concept for us. Meaning that our Pulse Policy Secure sits inside the network, to borrow today's terms, and is constantly looking at who's trying to connect. Are they the right profiles? Do they have the right credentials before we give them access, right? So that is a zero trust principle, so to speak, right? So on that product, we are using machine language today, machine learning, I should say, to understand the behavior of users. Suppose a device or a user, let's say you're a very simple example. You are in the finance department, you have access to the finance department's servers and applications. Right. Our system is looking at you and figuring out, okay, are you consistent with the behavior patterns that we expect you to have, with the permissions that you have? And the day you start doing, call it anomalous things, we have the ability to learn, we have the ability to report, we have the ability to stop as well. So that is where we see behavioral analytics becoming more and more mainstream. And that's also a true statement in IoT and the number of devices that are coming out in the marketplace as well.
I think that's important because as access becomes a primary control, perimeter goes away,
yes,
or at least the old perimeter,
old perimeter,
and now access is a new perimeter. The auditors, the compliance managers, they all want
Absolutely.
A gauntlet of multiple layers of control. It
Absolutely.
can't just be primary control. What are all the compensating issues?
Absolutely.
And that adaptive, that rich authentication
Is
strikes
important.
me as being the new thing you and I will be talking about, instead of firewall plus IDS plus DLP plus all the things that were physically present. Those functions and authentication become virtual.
Absolutely.
That's kind of cool.
Instead of chained and linear security,
Yeah.
security will become flat and distributed.
And software defined.
And software
Very
defined.
exciting.
Software enriched, I would say.
Hey, you're going to stick around and do this another 30 years?
Absolutely.
Keep
It's
doing it.
exciting. It's getting
You look like
exciting
you're
every
having
single
fun.
day. Absolutely.
You like running the company?
I love it.
If people want to learn more about Pulse, the website a good place to look?
Website is a fantastic place. If I can say a few other things about Pulse, I believe we have built an incredibly unique culture and value system at Pulse. As proud as I am about our customer base, our solutions, the velocity at which we are working, etc., I'm prouder, if I may say, of my people, the culture, and the values that we have built. Because
they're watching now. You give them a little shout out.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. It's because of their efforts that we've made the progress that we have made. In fact, a lot of people say that in a year and a half, we make more progress than in 5-6 years in their previous lives, and that's what keeps me going.
That's fantastic. I sense a very engineering culture in the company.
There is actually a very customer success driven culture, is the way I would describe it. Because our focus is on customer success. Engineering is a huge part of it. Marketing is a huge part of it. But the notion of a customer exists inside the organization. So if you talk to our operations teams, our HR teams, and our finance teams, their customers tend to be internal customers. And the focus of their customer success is also very critical to what we do. So yes, we have a very strong engineering foundation, but we are super strong in marketing, we are super strong in sales, but together we are customer success oriented.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming by to speak with us.
Thank you again.
Thanks for coming
Pleasure.
to New York.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And we will see you next time.